Welcome to Sparking Everyday Discipleship, where we discuss discipleship in the 21st century, focus on discipling our children, and celebrate books that help us with everyday discipleship every day, sparking important conversations with our children and others in our lives that we're discipling. I'm your host, Terrie Hellard Brown, and we're so glad you joined us today. We hope that you will be blessed by the conversation. We have a special guest with us today, Maria Antonia, who is a children's book author, and I can't wait for you to hear about her wonderful new book. Let's join the conversation. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm so glad to introduce our guest to you. This is Maria Antonia, and she is a children's book author. Thank you, Maria, for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Terrie.
Well, I love your book, Barnaby the Runaway Sheep, and it's a parable of the lost sheep. First of all, just tell us about the book and how you decided to write this story. It's so adorable.
Sure. So the book is about a little sheep named Barnaby who just loves his shepherds, loves to be the first one when the shepherd makes their call for the sheep to come in, and he's always very pleased to be first. But there's one thing that he really is afraid of, and that is getting his wool sheared, and he's afraid of those sharp clippers. And so he decides that he's just not going to stick around for that. He's going to run away. Or first he tries to hide. That doesn't work. So then he ends up running away and finds this cave that he lives in for a majority of the book, until he realizes that, he doesn't quite like being alone. It's scary, and what he's really missing is his shepherds. And so when the next time he hears the call the shepherds make, he gives out a little baa, and they find him, and then he has to face his fear. The book itself was based on a real life sheep by the name of Shrek. Shrek was a sheep from New Zealand who did in fact run away, or got lost, and ended up living in a cave for 6 years. It wasn't until 6 years that his shepherds found him, and he was so woolly, for lack of a better word. There's a picture in the back of the book that actually shows him in all his wool. He kind of looks like a bit like an ogre, which is why he got the name Shrek. I know that who puts out Shrek? Is that DreamWorks? DreamWorks were like, no, you can't use the name Shrek by itself. You have to call him Shrek the sheep to distinguish him from the ogre. So he was able to keep the name Shrek the sheep. And when they actually sheared him, it took 20 minutes. And this task normally only takes a few minutes. And sheep do need to be sheared at least once a year. If not, sometimes some of them even need to be sheared twice a year, I found out. And Shrek, it's so much wool, he couldn't get up. He could hardly eat. I don't even think he could eat by the time they found him. He was dehydrated because he couldn't move. So this is my little Barnaby. Originally started, I actually thought, why don't I write a story? Why don't I write Shrek's story? And I was actually going to do a nonfiction piece, but I eventually decided to make it fictional and renamed him Barnaby.
I like that. That's so cute. And then, of course, it parallels the biblical parable of the lost sheep. And I love the way the shepherds really care for him and care about him throughout the story. I think that is such a beautiful picture of showing how much God cares for us, even when we're afraid.
Yeah, and how I found this story was from a social media post. They had the story of Shrek, and then they likened the fact that the shepherds were out there and found Shrek, like that Jesus comes looking for us, and he will take care of us. So this definitely was inspired by, the parable of the lost sheep. And I have two shepherds, right? So I decided to do that. The story itself is told from the point of view of the sheep. So it's told from Barnaby's point of view. And so the shepherds are not named, or they're named. There's the tall shepherd, and then there's the small shepherd. And that's kind of done on purpose, as the small shepherd kind of represents us, and the tall shepherd kind of represents God or Jesus, where, he's the dad, and then the small shepherd is the kid. And we are to go out and help look for the sheep that get lost.
That's good. I like that because we don't often talk about that. We talk about how Jesus goes and leaves the 99 and goes
Yeah.
after the one, but we don't think about what's our part in that. That's good. I like that.
Of course, we're also the sheep too in there. There's lots of different, different analogies that you could put onto it. But yeah, that was sort of the idea behind some of why I decided to do two shepherds.
That's cool. And then we also could use this book to talk about the things that children fear, and that, my dogs are barking, and I'm trying to get my kids to hang on. Let me tell my kids they're supposed to know I'm recording. We'll edit this part out.
Sure.
Hello?
You know I'm recording, right?
Yes, I'm trying to get them to calm down, but they're not listening.
Can you take them outside for a few minutes or something? Or is it too cold? It's too cold, isn't it? Well, anyway, all right. Do your best. Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.
We'll just say that's a sheepdog.
Yeah. How would you encourage parents to use the book to kind of tackle some of our children's fears?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember being a kid and sitting in the kitchen with my mom and her scary scissors that were very sharp, and she cut my hair. I've watched my nephews and some of my nieces do the same thing. They need to get their hair cut, and they're like, "Oh, just don't get my ear." Like, it's like the mom is not going to get your ear, and if she does, it's because you're moving around.
Right.
And there is the part where Barnaby is sheared, and the small shepherd comforts him and says, "Look, Dad won't hurt you." And I think we have to remember that God, whatever he's going to do, even if it's something hard, that he might have to do something, but he will take care of us. He is going to do it in a way that is safe. And in fact, I mean, God is even safer than our human parents. I know when I was coming up, so I have an activity guide that goes with this book, and there's discussion questions. And one of the questions that I came up with to ask the kids is like, well, who are the shepherds in your life? And we can talk about parents being our shepherds. We can talk about teachers, our pastor, aunts and uncles. And obviously God is also our shepherd. And then the follow-up question I think I had was like, well, how do you trust your shepherds? And how do you know you can trust your shepherds? Because there's certain people that, especially adults, there's certain people that you have to trust, that you trust more than others, like your parents. There's certain times when you will trust your parents more than, your another adult. And that's something that I think it is good to talk to kids about, that we can always trust God. Even if something's a little bit scary, we can trust that God is perfect and that he puts other shepherds in our lives that will help us.
Yeah. Such a good lesson to teach kids. And, I remember I became a Christian when I was 7 years old, and I trusted God. But there was some point, actually after I became a mom, that I realized I was kind of pulling back a part of my life, because I thought if I completely trust God, he's going to have me do something I don't want to do, kind of like get sheared when I don't want to get sheared.
Right.
And I didn't consciously realize I was doing that until I was at a retreat and he confronted me about it. But, we sometimes get into that attitude because of fear, and helping our children understand that God is trustworthy, that he has our best at heart, that he works even the bad things out for good in our lives, and that we don't have to pull back in anything. We can completely surrender to him and trust him because he's a good, good God. And what a wonderful lesson. I mean, there's so many, I just love this book because there are so many little nuggets of lessons we can talk to our kids about throughout this. But I think to help them understand who God is and how loving and kind and gentle he is, how patient he is with us. And that was one of the things that also came out to me when I was reading the book, is how patient the shepherds were with this lamb who was just, no.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And the small shepherd, just he just takes it in stride, like, oh, Barnaby's playing hide and seek. He doesn't, it's like he doesn't quite get that Barnaby is actually trying to get out. And he goes into the pond. So that's a little nugget that I found out, that sheep can't be sheared when their wool is wet. The wool soaks in the water, it becomes too heavy. So it's like, oh, we'll just have to wait till he's dry. My editor asked me questions about the pictures because I'm not the artist. Her name is Sayani Mukherjee, and she, obviously is not in my brain as to what I wanted. So they asked what kind of clippers I wanted when I was talking about, did I want electric clippers? Did I want, like, no electric clippers. Although, I mean, they're scary on their own, but I had done research. I wanted this scary, like these are very sharp. The original, the clippers that they use, like they've used 100 years ago, they're very sharp and they're kind of scary looking, and they're in the book. I sent them a picture. I said, these are the kind of clippers I want. They're not like scissors. They're sharp, very sharp, like scissors. That I thought that was kind of neat that we were able to put that in, that here's this tool that's scary. And I always point this out when I do school visits and I read the book, and I always point out those scissors, like, I'm scared of these scissors. I would not want to be, sheared with these scissors. However, the shepherd knows what he's doing, and, Barnaby has to learn how to trust him in the end.
And if he didn't, he would be bogged down, couldn't eat, couldn't walk. His whole life would be different, like Shrek.
Yes. And I mean, I didn't make Barnaby for a whole year or for a whole 6 years or whatever. It's kind of, the wool grows over a series of a year, like it starts in the spring and sort of in the fall. It's kind of neat to see how Sayani created the spread with, you start with Barnaby with normal wool, and then at the end, he's just so fluffy that it's a little bit dirty, and yeah, he's just not quite as pristine as what he could be. So yeah.
That's so cute. Well, I love the book. I think it's really special, and I hope people will check it out. You do have a page on Paraclete, and can they get the extra materials on that page?
So to get the extra materials, I know it'll be on my website. It's actually going out with my newsletter next week, and then it will go onto my website. So my website is mariaantoniawrites.com.
Okay.
And then I think Paraclete does have another page, and I'm not remembering if it's Barnaby the Runaway Sheep. But I know for sure they will be able to get it through my website.
Okay. Yeah, I have my screen over here. It's paracletepress.com. Products, The Runaway Sheep.
Right.
Is what they have so far. I don't see the materials there yet, but of course they would put them up later.
But yeah, definitely if they do go to my website, it will be part of my newsletter that goes out, and then after that it will be on my website.
Okay, and I'll have the link in the show notes so people can link right to that. And I know you have at least one other book. Do you have other books out? Tell us about those.
So my first book is called The Christmas Elephant, and that just came out in October of this past year, in time for Christmas. And that's about a little girl who always dresses like an elephant, and she wants to be an elephant in the Christmas play. But her older sister, Piper, says, there were no elephants in Bethlehem. No, you cannot be an elephant. You have to be a sheep. And she's like, but I don't feel like a sheep. She says, Jesus knows that I'm an elephant. And it turns out that she tries to get on stage, but her sister always finds her and sends her back to the corner of the stage and tells her to go get into her lamb costume. And at some point, they realize that the baby Jesus doll is missing. And so Ellie, my little elephant, uses her little elephant memory, and she is able to find baby Jesus and save the Christmas play very quickly. And so, yeah, that one was kind of, I sort of put a bit of a Mary Martha spin onto it, where Mary is Ellie, the little elephant, and Martha, who is actually a little bit me, is Piper the director, who just is always just thinking, no, we have to have the perfect play. It's got to be done this way. And so it's a good reminder to myself and to the other Marthas out there that the most important thing about Christmas is Jesus.
That's cute. it's so intriguing to see the Christmas elephant. I mean, I'd never seen that title before. Great. And so those are you only have the 2 books
I
at
have
this point,
I have 2
right?
books. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have any others in the future coming up that we can watch for?
So I have a few that are out on submission, but nothing that I can report yet. But yeah,
Yeah.
I have books based on bees and parakeets and, girls and boys and all sorts of ideas. So some of them are actually physically on submission right now, and we'll see what happens with that.
I wonder if people know with children's writers how many ideas we have going at any one time.
You know what? I have a notebook that's filled to the brim with ideas. And, I just listening, just being in conversation with people, I'll get ideas and I'm like, okay, I got to put that in the notebook. And sometimes I won't act on it till years later. I'll go, right, I remember that idea. And then I'll say, I'm going to write that right now. And I also write for magazines. I write for Clubhouse Juniors. I think I'm actually going to have a story coming out I think it's in the March issue, and I have something coming out in the summer as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have had some article or stories come out in Starlight magazine, and my second picture book is coming out in April. So, and my first chapter book is coming out this week. So that was a new experience.
Yes, they're a little longer. I haven't had the editorial experience on what it does to do something with a little bit longer words. I will say one thing about picture books is that you do get kind of tired of reading and rereading your work just, before it goes to publication. It's like your eyes kind of almost glaze over at some point. It's like, I just hope there's no errors in here. After I've read it for the hundredth time, and I'm like, how much harder it must be for like a novel length book.
I disagree. I think it's easier because I think with picture books, I always say every word fights to be there. And I had my chapter book. It's so funny. I actually wrote the first version of it 16 years ago.
Wow. Yes.
And I had edited it probably 100 times. I mean, it seems like it was 100 times. It was a lot, but I had it professionally critiqued. And the first person who critiqued it said, this needs to be a chapter book. And I'm like, I don't know how to write chapter books. I've been learning how to write picture books. And so then I edited it some more. I made it 500 words. I made it 1,000 words back and forth. And then I took it to another professional critique. And guess what they said? This needs to be a chapter book.
Sometimes you just need a few more words. Sometimes you do. Like I said, even with Barnaby, I mean, I first wrote it as like a kind of a poem. It was a 50-word poem that was about Shrek and just how he had his hair and then he got it sheared. And I'd have to relook at what it says. But yeah, that was originally, and then I thought about making it a devotion. And eventually I settled on, a fictional picture book.
That's so cool. Well, I love what it became. I really think it's an adorable book. I think people will really be blessed by getting it and reading it. And like we were saying, there's lots of things you can talk about with your kids from this adorable book. So it just launched, right?
Well, it launches March 4th, yes. But I've been giving some sneak previews to some schools. I was able to, for World Read Aloud Day, I was able to do some virtual book readings for kids. So a couple lucky kids got to a little preview of the book.
Oh, that's awesome. So are both of your books with Paraclete or?
Yeah. So this was actually a 2-book deal. I got their attention with Barnaby. Like that's what we first submitted. And then my agent said, well, Maria also has a Christmas book. Would you like to see that? And they said, yes. And they said, well, we want to publish the Christmas book first, and then we'll publish Barnaby.
Well, that's cool. I love that. I really like Paraclete. They reach out to me a lot to see if I want to interview their writers. And I love Laura Sassy and everybody I've met from them. So, well, tell us a little bit more. I know you're in Canada, right? I have friends in Ottawa. I've never been there, but we actually met in Taiwan because we were missionaries in Taiwan, and they had come to Taiwan to teach, and we met there. But I've always wanted to go visit them, but just haven't.
So I'm by Niagara Falls, and often kind of drive by the falls every once in a while, especially if we have guests or whatever. We make it over to the falls. It's something that I will say you never quite get bored of looking at that. It's a beautiful place. But yeah, I have been to Ottawa once, and that is, it's a bit of a drive from here. Yeah, I would say I actually have friends who are going to Ottawa this weekend, and yeah, it takes like a good day to get up there.
Okay, I thought you were closer. I'm sorry. So when you do class visits or whatever, do you travel or do you do virtual more often?
So I've been doing both. Right now, I'm kind of sticking close to home. So I'm doing it in Ontario near Niagara Falls, the Niagara region, but I'm also doing it over on the American side in New York. So I did some visits in December there. I used to be a teacher. It's fun getting back in the classroom with the kids and sharing my books with them. And the virtual, it's a little bit different format, I will say. But you know what? It's kind of neat I try to be as interactive as I can, even with the virtual, and they tend to be a little bit shorter. But yeah, it's difference is making sure I can read the story and yet show it on the screen. It's a little easier, I will say, in person. But I've had some really good feedback on the virtual that I have done, the virtual visits.
So people can reach you on your website if they want to have you. Okay.
So I do actually have my author visits, school visits on there, and there's a page that's dedicated to that. And right now I am offering some virtual visits in March. So there's a link that they can click on and see if they can connect with me about might work for them, and I'll see if I can book them in.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we will have the links, like I said, in the show notes so people can go right to your website and check out the book and check out all the things that you have there. And is there anything else I left off that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think we pretty much, got everything Barnaby related talked about. I think we're good.
Okay. Well, this was fun. And I thank you for coming and spending your time with us. And I wish you all the best in Barnaby's launch. And I think everyone should check it out. I think it's a great book.
Thank you very so much. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Love it. And maybe when you have your next book come out, you have to let me know and we'll have you on again.
Sounds great.
Thank you for spending time with us today. If we sparked any questions or you want to share a comment, we would love to hear from you. You can put your comment on the blog post and we will get back with you. Oh my gosh. You can put your comment on the blog post and we respond to every comment or question. If you would like to reach out to Antonia, you can reach her on her website, Antonia. Oh my gosh. Let's just try this again. Thank you for spending time with us today. If we sparked any questions or you want to share a comment, we would love to hear from you. We respond to every comment or question, and you can put those on the blog post on my website, which is terriehellardbrown.com. If you would like to reach out to Maria, you can reach her at mariaantoniawrites.com. And you can also find the page on Paraclete Press for the Runaway Sheep. And so those links will be in the show notes and you can link right to those. She does, as we were talking about, school visits, and you can have her ask her to come and share with your school if you're in her area or do a virtual visit. We pray that you feel empowered to walk by faith and to embrace everyday discipleship every day with the people in your life.